Hello, and welcome to Empowering Women and Girls, a look at UN Sustainable Development Goal number 5. I'm Charity Coe Christensen, a doctoral candidate at MCPHS University. Though the views in this video do not represent any official position by MCPHS University or any of the other organizations discussed. Let's get started. The Sustainable Development Goals were adopted by the United Nations in 2015 with the target of achieving these things by 2030, and gender equality that we're discussing today is goal number 5. Achieving this goal will rely heavily on achieving goals 1 through 4, ending poverty, combating hunger, promoting health and well-being, and education. And by promoting gender equality, women and men can partner together to achieve the remainder of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals as set by the United Nations. The Sustainable Development Goals each have targets and objectives to help achieve them. And we're going to focus on 3 aspects of the targets and objectives for this goal: eliminating harmful practices related to child early and forced marriage, ensuring women's full and effective participation in public life, and promoting access to sexual and reproductive health care. Let's look at the underlying issues surrounding each of these areas. First, let's talk about early childhood and forced marriages. One third of women globally marry before the age of 18, and one third of those before the age of 15. The most common reasons for these are financially related, whether it's to settle a debt, secure a better financial future for the child, or to promote the family's financial security. There may also be familial alliance related reasons for this. Early childhood and forced marriage often results in fewer educational opportunities for the women in these marriages. It may expose them to increased risk of complications with their reproductive health due to early childbearing, and it increases their risk of exposure to violence. Let's talk about women in public life next, starting with their government participation. Only 26 countries have female heads of state, and only 14 countries have cabinets that are gender balanced or female led. Only 4 countries have legislative bodies that are gender balanced or female led, and only 25% of all members of legislative bodies worldwide are women. Next, let's look at some other issues related to women and their participation in public life. It's important to note that gender equality and economic development are strongly tied, and that researchers believe that that correlation goes in both directions. That countries with more advanced economic development tend to have more gender equality, and that in developing countries, as they enact more gender equality, their economic development tends to increase at a more accelerated pace, meaning that women and men should partner together for gender equality in the best interest of their economic development. It's also important to note that men's attitudes towards women and gender equality are strongly influenced not only by law and culture, but also by their immediate peer group. Leon et al. Found that when men were surrounded by peers who adopted misogynistic attitudes, they were less likely to advocate for women. It's also an important consideration that harassment of women does not respect national boundaries when it comes to the internet, and women are often subject to attacks from trolls online, which further harms gender equality even in countries where law and culture tend to promote it. In talking about women and their participation in public life, it is also important to remember that women often undertake uncompensated caretaker roles, which significantly impacts their time resources and ability to participate in other aspects of public life. In order to objectively discuss women and their participation in public life and overall equity, it's important to have an objective measure. Ewerling et al. Developed the Swipper Index, which considered 15 different factors and identified these 3 attitudes towards violence, social independence, and decision making as the main drivers of gender equality in a community, and therefore the measures that should be considered when comparing gender equality either over time or between different countries. Next, let's talk about women and their ability to access and make decisions about their sexual and reproductive health. Globally, only about 55% of married or partnered women have full autonomy over their reproductive health. And this lack of ability to control such a personal aspect of their health causes women to be at increased risk of lack of education, lack of economic opportunities, and increased risk of sexually transmitted infections and other reproductive health complications. Now that we've defined the issue, let's talk about some possible solutions. We're going to focus on three areas: educational opportunities, increasing reproductive health knowledge, and raising awareness of the issue. Let's start with educational opportunities. Promoting education requires qualified staff, facilities, and funding. However, in many low income countries, this is still not enough to get girls into school. Researchers have found that school feeding programs tend to increase enrollment by about 10%, and this disproportionately benefits girls over boys, making it an effective way to get more girls to school. Administering these school feeding programs has a number of challenges. In these same low income countries, school feeding programs require a higher percentage of the overall education budget, making them not practical without support from organizations such as the World Food Program. However, we also know that these programs have the best long term success when there's local sourcing, government oversight, and public private partnerships in the local community to make them happen. Land Ginger provides an overview of a successful transition from World Food Program assistance to a locally run school feeding program in the country of Kenya and is an excellent roadmap for others to follow. Improving individual health literacy for reproductive health has several different important features. For instance, Gaudet et al. Found that educating women about nutrition during their pregnancy improved pregnancy outcomes more than simply providing nutritional supplements. World Vision published a study authored by Lynch that looked at the roles of faith leaders and men, such as husbands and fathers, in women's reproductive health choices and found that these are important partnerships to promote. Finally, looking at a specific organization, Days for Girls is a nonprofit, non government organization that focuses on providing sustainable menstruation products. They have found that providing sustainable menstruation products in developing countries improves the number of days that girls attend school or women are able to attend to work and other endeavors. And also, with these products, they provide education to the community, women and girls, as well as men and boys, around aspects of sexual and reproductive health, thus improving the overall community health literacy on this important topic. Another important partner in improving community health literacy surrounding sexual and reproductive health are birth attendants. Globally, 60 to 80% of births are attended by a traditional birth attendant. And in these communities where there are often not other healthcare professionals, both men and women look to traditional birth attendants for advice. Finally, White et al. Did a study in a refugee population and found that in this underserved setting, they could safely train skilled birth attendants in about 520 hours to provide basic perinatal and delivery care for uncomplicated pregnancies and deliveries. There are many different programs out there to provide this type of training. One such program is the Helping Mothers Survive program. And in partnership with other entities such as Helping Babies Breathe, there's a 50,000 Happy Birthdays initiative to provide training to birth attendants and promote safe care in underserved settings. Finally, looking towards raising awareness, there are again many different organizations that I could highlight here, but I want to focus on Generation Equality Forum, organized by the UN Women, which has many helpful resources under their Act for Equal page for continuing this conversation, both for personal reflection as well as public advocacy. And I would encourage anyone interested in this topic to visit their site. I want to end this presentation on a more personal note with acknowledgement and thanks to the men and women throughout my life who have been examples of gender equity and who have personally championed my professional and educational career. To my parents, Don and Deborah, my siblings, Amber, Marshall, Sterling, and Lincoln, and most especially to my wonderful husband, John, who, in addition to being a wonderful champion of women and girls, has provided countless hours of uncompensated labor in support of my professional and educational journey. Thank you so much. Here are my references. Thank you so much for your time and attention today.